Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang. Oh, done.
And that headshot bang guy is still the man. Congratulations to Leon Edwards and all the other big winners at UFC 296. Welcome in Monday, December 18th, 2023. It is episode 455 of the Anik Florian Podcast, presented by DraftKings. We are on the DraftKings Network, DraftKings YouTube channel as well. And for those of our diehard listeners and viewers who have made the way over from the Anik Florian Podcast YouTube channel, we very much appreciate that. You know, a big chunk of our viewership, at least, hasn't necessarily made the transition over. So to all of those people that have, we thank you, and we're going to continue that initiative. But KenFlo, it's great to see you, man. It was great to spend some time with you in Las Vegas. It's always interesting for me when you leave and everybody says all these nice things about you. And they say, my gosh, you know, Kenny's so nice. It's like, I know he fought for the world title 3 times and fought at the highest level of the sport, but it's almost like sometimes I wonder if people like expect you to be a dick or something. They're always blown away by your disposition. And I feel like that nice guy comes across on the podcast. I don't know.
That's too funny, man. I had a blast, dude. It was great always seeing you and your brother and Cody and hanging with Ronnie. Just a good time, man. Good time catching up as always. And what a card we had on Saturday night.
And we're going to get into all of that. Ray Longo is going to join us in about 30 minutes. I am still here in Las Vegas. Believe it or not, EA Sports UFC 5 is not done yet. I thought we were done, but I'm actually here the next few days to do that. We filmed our 2023 year in review yesterday with Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen. That will air on ESPN Christmas Eve, I believe, at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So that was very enjoyable. But yes, thanks to big Ronnie Pellegrino for all of his hospitality, of course, at the Virgin, getting us the penthouse. And by the way, Niner, you can't have the penthouse, okay? It's invite only. There are only 2 individuals in the world that actually have access to the penthouse. It's deep into 5 figures a night. And Niner's not on the list. So, Craig, I apologize, but it kind of is what it is. A lot to get into today. And I did just want to say off the top, to all the listeners and viewers who came up to me and Kenny at the award show and throughout Vegas, we're just eternally grateful. We will never not be flattered and humbled by people coming up to us and talking about a podcast that is so near and dear to our heart that we're 9 years in on. And I was told we actually finished second to Dana White Contender Series in the voting, if that makes you feel any better. So
we just have to take out the people who run Dana White Contender Series.
Exactly.
And we should get first place next year.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, so we're getting there. Good.
And I also heard you were only like 80 votes behind Michael Bisping for congratulations on that. Incidentally, I finished dead last for Personality of the Year.
Oh, stop.
All right, let us get into Leon Edwards over Colby Covington by unanimous decision, 49-46 times 3. And we can spend 20 minutes on this main event and the fight week that preceded it. Let us at least start with the press conference and a little peel back of the curtain if I could. So I was actually feeling really sick on Thursday afternoon. So I hop in the hot tub at the penthouse to try to decompress and sweat a little bit. I get out of the hot tub to missed calls and texts from my boss, Zach Candido, and our VP of PR, Lene Breckenridge. They needed me to go host the press conference. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that it would spiral out of control like that with Leon throwing a water bottle at Colby, which hit me. But it was absolutely wild and an interesting precursor to this fight. But when I went to host UFC Live, Kenny, with Kamaru Usman on Friday, he was very surprised that Colby Covington was able to extract this type of emotion from Leon Edwards.
Yeah, listen, I think that Colby is willing to try anything and everything to try to get underneath the skin. But I think more than anything else, he's more interested in selling the fight. Now, I don't think you can agree with the choice that he made there, taking that last shot at Leon's father who had passed. I think that was just a low blow, and it's why everyone kind of got so excited about it. And, of course, Leon Edwards himself. And there's certain things that every person kind of carries with them that if you bring it up, it's going to be a deep wound that hasn't quite healed. And Colby promoting the fight or getting underneath his skin, whatever it is, maybe both. I think it was kind of it was in bad taste, right? And people were very upset about it. However, I'm not sure we should be so surprised about it, given Colby's history and his ability to kind of do things, attacking family members or talking bad about whatever history. So that's kind of what you get when you fight someone like Colby Covington. What was good, though, was the fact that Leon and his team were able to calm down, because that was a big concern for everyone watching that night, saying, geez, is Leon going to be able to reel it back? Is he going to be able to hold back those emotions? And instead of trying to kill Colby Covington and try to look for this knockout or whatever and force things out there, is he going to be able to stick to the game plan and do what he needs to do out there to defeat Colby Covington? And we got our answer. And I was very impressed with how him and his team were able to kind of get the emotions out of the picture and just focus on the task at hand.
Colby Covington is a perpetual line crosser. So I will admit, and I know this is the minority opinion, to being a little bit surprised at just how upset the masses were. I can understand Leon Edwards and his family being very upset. Leon is still carrying emotion from his father's murder. Even if his father wasn't necessarily a doting dad or a good guy, he's still carrying those emotions. However many years later, he was brought to tears backstage. I can understand all of that. But I feel like Colby always crosses the line, right? Yeah. There was no promotional rage at all from the UFC when he threatened that my kids would all grow up without a father, right? I didn't hear boo. So it seems like there's almost some selectivity when it comes to the rage with Colby Covington. Now, as far as him talking trash about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I didn't think he needed to close it out with the word pedo, pedophile. But I thought the stuff about a bus with no windows in Simpsonville, South Carolina, you and your dad sort of letting the kids on the bus, like, full disclosure, I thought that was hilarious, but I thought he just took it a little bit too far. I do think overall Colby Covington has gotten a little bit better in terms of the delivery of this material. I think it's less cringy. But the question beckoned, to your point, going into Saturday night, and it resulted in me rewriting my whole pay-per-view open. Could Leon Edwards bottle that emotion, channel that energy in the right way? And even when he addressed Joe Rogan on a microphone at the ceremonial weigh-in on Friday, 24 hours after the press conference, he was still seething and irate. But come Saturday night, Kenny, he was able to compartmentalize it in the best of ways and turn in what I thought was a pretty good performance. I know there is some criticism of Leon Edwards. Let us start with the performance. Dominic Cruz, the two buzzwords for him on the post show, range and precision, right? You have a lot of people saying that Colby Covington was completely listless and didn't do anything. But does not Leon Edwards deserve a lot of credit for his ability to just take over the fight and mute a lot of Colby Covington's offense in this 5-round fight?
You know, so many people don't really know what they're watching. It's no offense. It's just, you know, I've spent the majority of my life studying fighting and things like that. And when I hear someone go, Colby didn't show up, I'm sorry, but I immediately go, you clearly know nothing about fighting. You don't know about the sport, because absolutely, John, I'd say 90% of that or more had to do with Leon Edwards' ability to manage distance and keep Colby on the outside because of his phenomenal footwork and his ability to use those lead hands and those lead weapons and long range weapons, and use those lead hands as tentacles to try to keep Colby on the outside. He was switching stances. Colby is not necessarily known for his footwork. When you look at guys that he's faced, whether it's, you know, Kamaru Usman, Masvidal, Rafael dos Anjos, Woodley, Lawler, these are all great fighters. But when you look at them, you don't go, wow, man, their footwork is outstanding. No, you don't, which is why Colby is able to get to them. I can only wrestle you if I'm able to get at a certain range. If I don't get at that range, there is no wrestling. And so many times people are like, well, you know, why didn't Colby just go for it? Go for it where? Who does he touch if he's trying to chase a ghost? And that's what Leon was out there. He was a ghost. He was moving extremely well and never let Colby get started until really round 5. So That's a testament to just how smart and how good Leon Edwards is. It's also a testament, again, to how he was able to stay focused and stick to that game plan and not get so antsy and impatient and try to take Colby's head off.
I can understand why Joe Rogan didn't like the visual of round 5 of Leon Edwards underneath Colby Covington. It was the only round of the fight that Leon Edwards lost. But as far as I was concerned, he already had 4 rounds banked. Certainly, Leon Edwards would have liked to finish here, but I have to admit to being somewhat surprised at the criticism being levied upon Leon Edwards, right? The notion that you can always produce style points in MMA is absolutely foolish. Colby Covington got nothing done in this fight, right? And the disingenuous nature of his comments after the fight don't sit particularly well with me, right? The notion that he thought he won rounds 3, 4, and 5. He certainly won round 5.
Right.
Let me ask you this about Colby Covington. And sometimes I have suggested that there are fighters that are contented to just hear that final horn. They don't want to be somebody else's highlight. They don't want to take the requisite risk necessary to maybe end up on the wrong end of a knockout. So do you think that Colby Covington maybe should have taken more chances in the latter rounds, knowing that he was 3-0 down? And do you think that Colby Covington in any way, shape, or form was chasing a moral victory in any way and just trying to go the full 25 and not wanting to be twitching on the canvas at the end of the fight?
Yeah, it's quite possible. I think that, again, that footwork mitigated so much of what he wanted to do. Anytime he pursued, Leon was just a step behind or a step, too far forward for Colby to even touch his leg. So I think that's what was frustrating for him. Also, I think the counter shots and the counter ability of Leon Edwards. He was throwing that teep right down the middle, attacking the midsection of Colby Covington as well. So that effectively acted like a shield.
Right.
It was difficult. I think that, yeah, Colby could have thrown more overhand rights and maybe just trying to throw more stuff long distance for himself. Maybe in the form of a roundhouse kick or something to get things going. But I just think that he wasn't able to find that range because of the footwork of Leon Edwards. And I don't know. I think that it's a difficult thing. Colby has looked good against other guys that, didn't have great footwork. I think that's a lot, that had to do with that performance. I also think, to get back to your point about the criticism on Leon Edwards in round 5, or maybe losing position in some of those earlier rounds. I love it because to me, what it showed, first of all, he made the right decision. He was executing a little bit off. Colby also is an excellent grappler. He was able to turn the tables a little bit. I really enjoyed those exchanges. And to me, it showed the confidence level of Leon Edwards and also his ability to go into some of the territory of Colby Covington. Even when he lost position for periods of time, he never really allowed Colby Covington to take advantage of those mistakes. So Leon, I think, is only going to grow from this and get better. And I think he's a much better grappler, a much, much better grappler than people give him credit for.
Yeah, look to be a better MMA wrestler and grappler than Colby Covington on this night. And some people have criticized me for overrating Colby Covington, always referring to him as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And so now when I think about that criticism that I have received, it makes me wonder, has Colby Covington been a little bit overrated? Because even though I can put his performance against Robbie Lawler on a pedestal, I feel like other than Max Holloway against Calvin Kattar, that's the best individual offensive performance I've ever seen. But Robbie Lawler was long in the tooth. He didn't necessarily even fight a prime Damian Maia back in the day. Certainly when he fought Jorge Masvidal in March of 2022, he had one foot out the door.
Yep.
So this is a huge loss in terms of the body of work for Colby Covington, right? He could have stamped himself a Hall of Famer on this night potentially, and now I don't think he's going to get there. Chael Sonnen suggested on the post-fight show that maybe Colby Covington would retire. Dana White said at 35 years of age that he looks slow and old. Colby Covington referenced ring rust and the layoff. Dominic Cruz was very dismissive of that. Maybe there was a pre-existing injury. Maybe Leon Edwards is just much better in 2023.
I think that's the case, to be honest. Colby is a very good fighter. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's an awesome fighter. He's known for his conditioning. That has been a weapon for him in the past. His ability to take guys down, his ability to grind his way to victory, his ability to stay in front of your face even when he's losing, even when he's hurt, even when he's getting beat up. This dude is a problem. He is one of the toughest fighters that I've ever seen compete inside the octagon. I just think style-wise, Leon Edwards was ready for it. And again, we can go back to those earlier fights against Kamaru Usman. Having those two fights and having that amount of experience in there against a high-quality wrestler like Kamaru Usman, who can also strike, by the way, with his hands, I think gave him the ultimate preparation for someone like Colby, even with that level of pacing that he puts on people. So Leon figured out the game plan a couple fights ago when he started that series against Kamaru Usman, or when he had that second fight in the series with Kamaru Usman. So, I just think that Colby also has chosen really good fights to get him these opportunities. Again, I'm not taking away from Colby as a fighter. He's an excellent fighter. He's a real problem. But he's also done a great job management-wise, or his team has, in picking the right fights for him to advance his career.
And I know we have a lot of fun on this show with, Kenny Florian and I finish fights, but it really speaks to a methodology, right? And a thought process for you guys. You're going in there trying to take out the opposition. Dean Thomas talks about it all the time. He trains his fighters to finish. A lot of these trainers and coaches train their fighters to win rounds. And when you're Colby Covington or our dear friend Bilal Muhammad, right? These guys aren't necessarily known as being finishers, and it puts some pressure on you when you always have to win on the scorecards. Colby Covington does not have a lot of finishes, does not have a lot of ways to get guys out of there. And when you don't have much resembling submission offense or knockout power, you can't always play the long game.
Exactly correct. And I think that's why he has taken the approach of using his mouth to get the fights that he wants. I mean, similar to Chael Sonnen. And again, this is no disrespect, because you got to do what you're best at, right? You have to use the gifts that you are given. And Chael, Colby, they're not known for their finishing ability. Chael, is even less of a fighter than Colby Covington was. But man, everybody knows who Chael Sonnen is because of the things that he said on the mic and the way that he promoted his fights and the opportunities that he has gotten over the course of his career. Really was because how slick he was on the mic and the things that he said. So, I think now, when you talk about finishing, you see the opposite side of those things. If you are a finisher, if you are a guy that is known for your ability to take people out, whether it's on the ground or on the feet or both, that does all of the marketing for you. The UFC just needs to cut and edit the video and put it out there, and then everybody wants to see you fight. So it really does the marketing for you.
Well, that brings us to Sugar Sean O'Malley, who will defend his belt against Marlon Chito Vera at UFC 299 in Miami, Florida in March. What is the number one reason why Sean O'Malley is a big star? Now, I could give you 5 reasons why he's a big superstar. The cannabis is relatable. Him smoking cannabis with Snoop Dogg back in 2017. The hair, the charisma. But the number one reason Sean O'Malley resonates with fight fans is his fucking highlight reel. He has a bunch of viral knockouts that the UFC can repurpose. That is the number one reason why Sean O'Malley is a superstar. A lot of these guys don't necessarily have that. So Colby Covington right now does want to return first quarter 2024. I'd like to see him in a main event against Shavkat Rakhmonov, but it doesn't seem as though Colby Covington thinks that fight makes sense. He wants Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think that matchup also makes sense. But again, there's Colby Covington, right? Trying to fight a guy who's long in the tooth as opposed to fighting a prime Shavkat Rakhmonov that would maybe set him up for a future championship opportunity. Like, what exactly are we trying to do? I understand, Kenny, a lot of people don't like the Rakhmonov-Covington fight, and that is fine. But if you're Colby Covington and you're trying to secure potentially a 4th shot at the undisputed gold, that's the guy you got to beat, not Stephen Wonderboy Thompson coming off a submission loss to that guy.
Yeah, well, again, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Colby is not dumb, okay? He knows what fights are going to suit him best. Wonderboy is known for getting taken down eventually, and from there you can control him, you can beat him up, you could even submit him, as Shavkat showed. But Shavkat is an absolute problem, dude. I mean, this guy, he can wrestle, he can strike, he's massive for the division. I think it's probably a better fight for him to fight someone like Wonderboy. So I think for Colby, he's more at this stage of the game, even with this title shot, he's more about making money. I don't think he's about, hey, I want to be a champion of the sport. If that happens, great, absolutely. I'm not saying he's not trying. He absolutely is trying. But what's motivating him most, what's getting him out of bed and training so hard, I think, is just the money-making ability. You know, he can make a ton of money right now, and everybody knows his name. He's had a recipe that has worked for him, not something that's popular, but it has worked for him. And I agree that Wonder Boy fight for him is definitely way more favorable, way more favorable than taking on a guy like Shavkat. And maybe even for the UFC, they might be thinking, hey, you know, if the Colby fight goes away, if Shavkat doesn't want to, or Colby doesn't want to fight Shavkat, that's fine. We'll move on. We'll put him against somebody else. And but Shavkat's well on his way. I know we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But that was a great performance.
And perhaps Colby Covington will be better in a more active competition cycle. He referenced the layoff that dated to the Masvidal fight in March of 2022. But let us be clear, and Kenny has really echoed this sentiment. The problem for Colby Covington on this night was the opponent, Leon Edwards, who was exponentially better than he was. All right, so Leon Edwards, now 2 defenses of his welterweight title. And again, this unbeaten streak that dates to 2015 continues. He is starting to close the gap, I would think, on certainly Kamaru Usman, not necessarily George St. Pierre yet, but some of GSP's records are now within reach for Leon Edwards. As we spin it forward for Leon, right? Belal Muhammad is seemingly going to be the guy who gets the title shot. I just want to throw this your way, Kenny. So Leon Edwards has expressed some interest in competing at UFC 300 on April 13th. It's easy to see why. As a defending champion who gets pay-per-view points, if you're one of 3 title fights at UFC 300 on this massive card, it stands to reason, you know, Leon Edwards make fucking $6 to $10 million, right? Ramadan is March 10th through April 9th. So if I'm Leon Edwards, I'm asking for Belal Muhammad on April 13th at UFC 300, and that would essentially mean that Belal Muhammad's entire training camp takes place during Ramadan.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
it's cold. It's cold. It's cold as ice, but
listen, it's war, right? It's war at the end of the day. And as a fighter at the highest level, what I've found is sometimes it's those little advantages, those little decisions that you make that make all the difference in the world. And for Belal, who's been waiting for this opportunity, what is he going to say? No at this stage of the game and let someone else get that opportunity after all the years of hard work that he's put into this? It is absolutely a cold methodology there, an approach, but wouldn't be the dumbest part for Leon Edwards. Again, you want every advantage you can get, and if he can pull that off, it would certainly be interesting.
Shavkat Rakhmonov has been very deferential to Belal Muhammad. You heard him say it during the week. He believes that the title shot is Belal's. He's going to accept the shot, obviously, is Shavkat if he gets it, but I think he understands there's a pecking order, and it's nice when the fellow contenders understand that there is sort of a little bit of a meritocracy. I'm not suggesting that Cheeto Vera should have said, oh, you know, Merab Dvalishvili's more deserving, but clearly Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards have unfinished business. There's a foundation for that fight. I'm really hopeful that Belal gets the title fight. And, you know, hopefully it's at UFC 301 or UFC 302 because, yes, Belal would take the fight, but if he has to do the entire training camp during Ramadan, I think that would be a little bit unfortunate. But congratulations to Leon Edwards on an exceptional performance and a second defense of his welterweight title. All right, Alexandre Pantoja in the co-headliner defeats Brandon Royval by unanimous decision, 50-45 times 2, 49-46 from the dissenting judge. So, man, Pantoja, I think if he could do it again, he wouldn't have come out quite like a bat out of hell like that in round 1. So after round 3, he goes back to the corner, big reset. Like you could tell he was visibly concerned about his gas tank after round 3. And then after round 5, big wipe of the brow, right? He learned a lot. When you can win and learn, it's outstanding. And Pantoja is probably going to be my fighter of the year for 2023.
Oh, man, what a fight. I love that pacing in round 1. But in my head, I go, Gee, so either he's extremely confident in his conditioning heading into this fight, or he's getting a little too excited, and he got a little too excited. I think he was so confident that he was going to finish Royval that he decided to start with that pace. He thought that by round 2, he was going to have him out of there. I truly believe that. I think he thought he was going to take his back at a certain point and finish him with a rear naked. Didn't happen. Why? Because Royval was very well prepared for this fight. He is tough as nails. I think where he lacked, though, was the potency in a lot of his strikes. Like, he's very dangerous, especially early on. He's very unpredictable. But I think that he lost some of that unpredictability, and I think he lost some of that potency because of those early rounds trying to deal with the grappling offense of Pantoja. I think he got tired himself, not as tired as Pantoja, but I think it was enough to take away some of the sting of his typical strikes that he starts his fights with. So in a way, it was smart by Pantoja. However, as someone who picked Pantoja to win, round 5, I was sweating, man. I did not know if he was going to have the energy to keep Royval off of him. Like, I was expecting a swarm from Royval, and it just never came. He never really pursued him, looked for that flurry of punches or strikes or flying knees or crazy kicks. Those were just never there. And that's where Pantoja just, was able to win that fight. And he's extremely good. Hopefully he learns from this. But the other thing is Pantoja has been tired in previous fights. And now that he's fighting every fight now as a 5-rounder, he's going to have to be way more aware of that.
So Alexandre Pantoja is now, I think, 27-5, pro debut at 17, 32 pro fights. He has never been finished. I have so much respect for this athlete and everything that he has committed to this game and the way he has waited at times a full year for a title shot if need be. I thought he won all 5 rounds. Some fans suggested maybe there were opportunities for the referee Mark Goddard to stand the individuals up in this fight. I disagree. I felt like the grappling of Pantoja was busy enough, and I thought his top pressure was consistent enough to not really have the need for a stand-up, never mind a warning. But I do think some fans felt like maybe there were opportunities for that fight to have been standed up. You got anything for us on that?
Yeah, actually, I kind of wanted to go back to Leon and Pantoja as well, because these are two guys, John, that did it the right way. And it's extremely rare in 2023, now going on to 2024, that you get these guys amongst fighters that have, all fighters have some kind of story, some kind of adversity that they had to deal with, some more than others. And both of those guys are great examples that had to overcome just a tremendous amount of adversity to get to where they're at. And they did it without having to, talk trash on the mic. They did it with results and consistency and hard work. And the fact that Pantoja was able to do that and defend the belt against a dangerous guy like Royval is an awesome story, just like Leon. So again, I kind of wanted to highlight that as well. And what was your question again, John?
I guess there, we have referee inconsistency in mixed martial arts, but Mark Goddard to me is as good as Jason Herzog or anybody else in the space. And I thought he handled this situation well. There were times where maybe people thought Pantoja was stalling and not doing enough on the ground. I didn't have that opinion.
Yeah, I think there were some slow moments, and then anytime it started to get to the point where you thought something was going to happen, Pantoja would pick it up again. So I thought there was nice patience displayed by the referee to allow that to happen, and it was getting close, but I did not have a problem with that either, no.
All right, we'll see where Brandon Royval goes from here. He's going to have to rebuild and climb back up the ladder, but this flyweight division is just insane. I think I articulated on the broadcast, they move so quickly, I almost can't even keep up. And thankfully, Joe Rogan was there on a night in which we needed a lot of grappling analysis, because half of that stuff, I don't even know what the fuck is going on. All right, so as we spin it forward for Alexandre Pantoja, certainly a guy who has earned some much-needed rest. Brandon Moreno weighed in as the backup. A lot of people felt like we would see those two fight again, even though they have fought 3 times, once in exhibition, twice in the UFC. Pantoja has 3 head-to-head wins against Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno in a main event in Mexico City, February 24th against Amir Albazi. Manel Kopp and others are lurking. Kai Kara-France, of course, close loss for him against Albazi. What are your thoughts on what might be next for Pantoja at 125 pounds?
Gosh, I mean, certainly if Albazi wins that, I think that could be next. There's so much talent in that division, dude. It's just nuts. I think that it was an excellent display of how good that division is. They're so technical. You're going to see mixed martial arts everywhere in every single fight. They're so well-rounded. They're so good everywhere. The pacing is amazing. So I think there's a lot of options there. I don't know which way exactly the UFC is going to head for their next one, but I think Albazi would be very interesting if he's able to get it done against Moreno. No easy fight there at all.
Yeah, that's a fresh fight. That makes a lot of sense. I think Manel Kopp is one of the other guys that is lurking as well. So we'll see what they do with Alexandre Pantoja, but they have a ready, willing, and able flyweight champion that has set himself up for another big year in 2024. All right, that brings us, as we continue our UFC 296 pay-per-view recap here on the Anik and Florian podcast, to the featured bout at welterweight, Shavkat Rakhmonov, the first man to submit Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by rear naked choke. So as this fight is going on, I'm thinking to myself, has Stephen Thompson ever been submitted? Now, sometimes I'll have that on my fighter card. So I just double-checked with the truck and said, hey, can you just chase that for me to make sure that Wonderboy has never been submitted? And then sure enough, a couple minutes later, we had it ready to go for the call.
Yeah.
So that's a huge feather in the cap of Shavkat Rakhmonov. He told Lorisenko he did go in with an injury. It was not the perfect fight for him, but he did something against Wonderboy Thompson that had never been done before.
Absolutely. And I think that my big concern with that fight and why I picked Wonderboy, because it was a very interesting underdog bet, was the fact that, sometimes Shavkat gets a little bit stubborn and he goes, well, you're going to hit me, I'm going to hit you back. We saw that in the Jeff Neal fight. And I think that he was able to reel it back in, get his composure and go, no, I got to stick with this game plan. The game plan is to take Wonderboy down, because in a lot of these exchanges, Wonderboy was countering him, and Wonderboy was clearly the faster guy, even at his age. And Wonderboy's just so damn good. And in round one, he did an excellent job of stopping that takedown. I thought Wonderboy won round one. I thought he was landing the cleaner, more effective punches, and the wrestling was largely canceled out there by Wonderboy. So I said, this is where it gets interesting. Can Wonderboy keep up this wrestling defense, and can he keep his conditioning at the level of Shavkat, who seemed to be getting a little bit closer and closer to that takedown? And ultimately, we got our answer. Shavkat stuck with the game plan. He was able to get to that leg, take him down, keep him down, took his time, got excellent control, got excellent positioning, chipped away with the ground and pound, and ultimately got that rear naked choke, which was in very, very deep. And I thought it was a tremendous performance and exactly what he needs to do to advance his position in that division, to potentially get a title shot in the near future, which I think he will absolutely do. So to me, this brought me back to Team Shavkat Rakhmonov, because it showed his intelligence. It showed that he can adjust during a fight. And it showed that he's more than just this big dude who can strike. He can absolutely wrestle you. He can win in a variety of ways, and he did it against someone like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So massive win.
And Brendan Allen, he is not in terms of the submission prowess, but he is one of the more prolific submission artists in this welterweight division. He's got a lot of chokes, a lot of different ways to get you out of there if indeed the fight does get to the ground. And you can't always say that about some of these fellow welterweight contenders. Now, I did ask one of my colleagues this weekend, when you see the following of like Merab Dvalishvili in Georgia, Kenny, or you see Shavkat Rakhmonov with Kazakhstan, sometimes I wonder the extent to which that moves the pay-per-view needle. And my colleague suggested, not really. Just because 230,000 people are dropping Kazakhstan flags on Lorisenko's Instagram, it doesn't necessarily mean that Shavkat is going to be some massive pay-per-view draw.
Right.
And our friend Big Ron was wondering aloud, if you're setting up a pay-per-view headliner between Leon Edwards and Shavkat Rakhmonov, I mean, the press conference, right? That's a little bit of an issue, right? At least with Bilal Muhammad, he's going to get into it with Leon, and those guys are going to have some sort of back and forth. Shavkat Rakhmonov and Leon Edwards are two of the best pound-for-pound mixed martial arts athletes on the roster, right? Two of the top 30 or whatever you want to say, fine, right? But I don't know that that's the most marketable, billable fight necessarily for the UFC, but you do have a guy who's 18-0 with 18 finishes. That is all the rage, at least according to the fan base. So maybe one fight away. I'd like to see Rakhmonov in a main event. I don't think it's going to be Colby Covington. But what are your thoughts on Shavkat, what you would do next? Cody, I've been chatting with you on the side. Can you populate the welterweight top 10 for me, please? What do you think, Kenny, in terms of Shavkat Rakhmonov? Would you like to see him at a UFC main event? Would you like to see him get one more test before ultimately he fights for the welterweight title?
Yeah, listen, I think that would probably be the smartest thing from a promotion standpoint to go out and do, right? If the UFC wants to build him yet again, you put him on a main event of a fight night to help promote that next potential title shot. I think he's there. I think he's ready. And of course, we're talking about highlights, right? Video highlights of his finishes. He's got them all. I mean, every single fight, he's finished a dude. So that's going to be easy cutting the tape. Just more people need to know who he is. And I agree with you. He doesn't have, the command of the English language to go out there and promote a fight and do all these press conferences in that way. Even when he is speaking his own language, he's very, to the point, very conservative. He's not going to really talk a whole lot of trash. So, yeah, I think that, I think that Shavkat is in a good position to fight for a fight night against who? I don't know. And maybe it's the winner of Ian Gary Luque. I think that there's a bunch of other options there, but he's right there knocking on the door. Man. Yeah, I think Bilal's probably going to be next, and he'll be shortly after.
I wonder if Ian Machado Gary would fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. Those guys have trained together pretty extensively as former teammates, but I think at this point they probably would. Now, the promotion did pivot off of the Ian Machado Gary Vicente Luque fight. So Ian Gary is now going to fight Jeff Neal at UFC 299 in Miami on March 9th. You may recall that Jeff Neal and Ian Gary were booked in Boston last August. So Vicente Luque, kind of the odd man out right now, but maybe he finds himself in a main event against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Again, there's a lot of connective tissue with these Kill Cliff FC teammates. So
I know that's the thing. I would love to see a Gilbert Burns fight. How close they are, how much they train together. I don't know, but that's another one that I think would be interesting and makes sense from a rankings perspective.
Yes, Burns and Rakhmonov makes a shit ton of sense, but they are training partners and teammates, I believe. Among the fight bookings you heard over the weekend, Michael Venom Page has been signed. He'll fight Kevin Holland. Gilbert Burns is fighting Jack Della Maddalena, and as we mentioned, Ian Gary, Jeff Neal. Those are all official for March 9th in the welterweight division.
And John, okay, so that's going to be at 170, Kevin Holland and Michael Venom Page.
Presumably. I know the UFC wants Kevin Holland at 70, even though at times he wants to compete at 85. But yeah, so big things, and then happy to see the UFC sign Michael Venom Page. All right. Plenty more coming up over the next 45 minutes or so as we continue to recap UFC 296. Let us get to the Ray Longo Minute.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in this fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast.
Hey!
First off, what a crock of shit those awards was, huh? I mean, have you ever seen such bullshit in your fucking life, man? Yes or no? Is it me?
Ray, why didn't you start like 1,000 accounts and just vote for us?
Yeah, I don't even have it. I don't even have an Instagram account at this point. So I say I got no shot.
Well, I think for a lot of us in the MMA space, right, like I have never won an award in my life, and that is absolutely fine with me. But I think a lot of us would like to see a more regulated award show where it's actually a meritocracy and not sort of a popular vote, right? Yeah. We were absolutely honored to be nominated for MMA Programming of the Year. It touched all of our hearts. It was the reason why we all attended the show. But when I found out we're competing in the category with Dana White's Contender Series, a goddamn live fight promotion.
Right.
We're not going to win a popular vote against that show. So I would hope that at some point the World MMA Awards would not just be a popular fan vote, and then we'd have a goddamn fucking chance, Raymond.
I mean, really, we need I'd like to see Price Waterhouse get involved. make it a little legit, no?
Right.
I mean, this was embarrassing.
Right. Anyway, I probably won't be there next year. Probably actually lost all of my nominations with this discourse right now. You know what? I'm okay with it. All right. So a lot to digest, Raymond. I don't even know where to begin with you, but I guess I would like to harken back to the Thursday press conference because Colby Covington is a perpetual line crosser. And I know you're shaking your head. And so many people have been texting me, and I got a text even from a reporter this morning that said, fuck Colby Covington, what a disgrace of a human being. And a lot of people sort of subscribe to that theory. What are your thoughts, Ray, on whether or not he crossed a line that he had never crossed before in injecting Leon Edwards' deceased father into the trash talk this week?
Well, first off, that was me that wrote that to you. No, I'm only kidding. No, I got absolutely no use for the guy at all. I just don't. Ever since he threatened you, he knows where you live. He can go fuck himself. Couldn't give a shit about that guy. What he did with Leon Edwards, I think, is atrocious. There's promoting a fight and then there's being a total fucking misfit in life. And that's the way I see it with that guy. I mean, first off, Leon Edwards with his father, that was heartbreaking to listen to Leon talk. Leon's a sweetheart of a guy. I really like Leon Edwards a lot, man. To see that, I'm tearing up as he's doing that. And it's anger. And it's anger towards Colby. That's what it does to me. But I don't know. Look, the guy attacks Wonder Boy. You see Wonder Boy handle that like you can't even attack him. That's how nice the guy is. He's up there and he's smiling, but, he's calling the guy a pedophile. This guy's a piece of shit, He calls Wonder Boy a pedophile. Wonder Boy is doing something, at least he gives back to the community. Colby, you sucking the fucking life out of the community. You're just like a leech on society. You know what I mean? And now you're attacking this guy. It's just, it's just too much for me. I don't care for it. And man, talk about karma, because what a piece of shit that fight was. The guy did absolutely nothing. And to be able to take a pro Colby crowd and by the end of the fight, have the crowd against you, good luck, my man. I hope it was worth the money, the extra 25% or whatever. I hope it was worth it for you, because I've been around a long time. I can promise you that you will regret a lot of shit for the rest of your life. I think he cost Trump the election. How's that? But Mr. President, Mr. President is here to watch me. I got who do you got? The Queen of England? This motherfucker called somebody a dope. I'd love to see this guy's college transcripts. It's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Horrible. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's all fair. I agree. I guess the only thing I wonder aloud about is that this guy has injected family a lot, right? He injected Kamaru Usman's daughter into the conversation at one point in time. It wasn't necessarily as venomous as this particular trash talk, but I was with Kamaru and he was surprised that Leon got so emotional. I do believe part of the reason there is so much outrage is because Leon Edwards got so upset. I know I'm not a fighter, but very few people on the UFC side gave a modicum of a shit when he threatened my 3 children, right? So I just think sometimes there's a little bit of inconsistency when it comes to how upset people get with certain things that come out of his mouth.
Right. Well, that's always going to be the tricky part, John. One is everybody's line is going to be different, right? I would think, maybe even something we would think mild to somebody else. What we would think is a pebble in the, skipping in the ocean is a boulder to some people. So, but this one I think is too much. Even what he did with you, again, God forbid your kids hear that.
They'll hear it eventually. But again, it's I wasn't even that upset. I was more upset about how everybody was so upset. This, I just think it's a little bit of a selective.
I know. No, I think it is a selective thing. But the other problem with Colby is then you smack him in the face and he's suing you. This is the worst case scenario. That guy doesn't even take it on the chin. He causes a riot, and then he doesn't want to fucking own up to it.
Yeah, and I think that at a certain point, though, guys. So if we rewind way back when Miguel Torres posted some picture about a van, right, and it had that thing. It was something like it's a reference to like a pedo van or whatever the heck it was, right? And he got kicked out of the UFC for that. Okay, but now in 2023, we could say that. We could talk about dead fathers. We could say whatever it is because it's okay. And if the promotion says it's okay, then basically they're giving the okay to any fighter out there to go and do that to promote a fight. And I think at a certain point, you kind of have to have a talk with the fighter and be like, you know what? That's not cool. It doesn't make the sport look good.
Yeah.
You're kind of just denigrating everything about yourself. And I don't know. It's just weird how far we've fallen from maybe say something like that with Miguel Torres, whether that was warranted or not, to now it's like, he's just promoting the fight. It's cool. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Look, to each his own. I'm not making it. Look, I'm not getting past what he said to Jon. I don't even care if Jon's mad or not. It's that behavior on the street will get a fucking bat over your head. You don't get away with that shit. You just don't. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's right either. I'm being a fucking lunatic, but you don't even make references to a guy's family like that, especially when you have young kids. Because again, it goes back to those kids can't have the conversation we're having right now, right? They can't have this conversation. They don't have the defense mechanisms. They don't have the experiences in life to know what's going on. It's fucking bullshit. And this dope can't fucking recognize that, then that's his fucking problem. He has to pay the price for that. You know what I mean? But I think, honestly, the way he fought Saturday night was the best thing that could have happened for anybody that was, against him. And the worst thing that for him, I mean, he just didn't show up. I don't know what to say, but I actually get aggravated, Jon. I'm not, again, Leon's dead father attacking Wonder Boy as a pedophile. I'm still on your thing. That's never going away.
Right.
But, maybe that's because I'm Sicilian. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's not going away. I have no use for the guy at all.
So in terms of the fight itself, Kenny and I sort of feel like Leon Edwards is not getting the credit that he deserves, and that people are sort of looking at Colby Covington not getting a whole lot done. But most of that was because Leon Edwards led the whole dance and was much better, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, man, Leon's a great fighter. I'm not saying he's a crowd pleaser, but man, if you're like a real fan of the sport and you admire the artistry of it, I mean, even those front kicks to the belly, the kicks to the leg, he was taking Colby apart piece by piece. Was it the most exciting thing? For me, I enjoyed it, but there were times I'm like, Leon, let's go, man. You could just, I believe you could just walk in there and finish the fight.
Right.
The guy's not, you could take his shot. He's not a big puncher. Go in and finish the fight, or at least attempt to finish the fight. You know what I mean? So he's a cerebral guy, man. That's the way he's going to fight. He's not here's where I'm super impressed with Leon. I thought he'd come out like a lunatic because of his emotions, and he was able to contain something that was obviously very, very disturbing to him. So that's how cerebral I think this kid is, that he was able to block that out and put on a performance like that against a dangerous guy like Colby Covington. And like, again, I'm sure there's going to be people that, wasn't exciting for him enough. But, to me, I got a different view on it. You know what I mean? I had a kid fight over the weekend, Pumi Nakuda. Kids never lost a round. They don't want to look at him.
So
they
weird.
don't even want to look at him. I put him in with Pantoja tomorrow, and I know people say you're a fucking moron. Try it. Let's do an experiment. You know what I mean? The kids, I think he's that good. Where now might not be exciting if you don't like, if that's not what you like, but if you like dominant rounds with the wrestling and up and down, and the kid did great. Again, 30-27, took it on a week's notice against, went up a weight class against a tough kid who was very strong. He got the job done. It's just not good enough, so I can tell you right now, my guess would be they don't like Leon Edwards, just even based on that fight. They're going to say, man, people were falling asleep. They'll do something like that to him. But it was a technical, tactical work of art, as far as I'm concerned. Except for, and I think he got carried away with some of the wrestling stuff. But I think, I think he felt safe enough to give up a couple of minutes of a round.
Most people believe Pumi Nakuda is one of the best 15 flyweights in the world right now who actually watched the film. So hopefully that UFC opportunity comes at some point in time. Congrats also to your guy, Anthony DeLemme. How about you rocking the Anik and Florian podcast?
Come on, man. What else
Inside
can I
the
do?
Cage. I don't know.
I don't know. That was my guilt for not showing up at the awards. I had to get it back somehow.
How was the movie shoot?
Movie shoot was great. Let me just shout out Anthony DeLemme, another great fight. Really, really good kid. I think he's 5-0 now or 6-0. Really excited for him. And Armando Getcha lost the title fight, which, he kind of had some technical problems, but I think Armando will be back. I thought he was looking pretty good up until the point he wasn't. But all things good. The movie shoot that business is insane, John.
It is.
I had one day. I shot. First off, I just let me preface this. Since we're talking outside of fight, I was 100% the worst guy on the set. They had some really good people, but I got there at 4:30, John, in the afternoon, and I left there at 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning. Oh. And you know me, that's almost like a death sentence. So I was by 4 a.m, I was just slap happy and acting like an idiot. But
no, I mean,
that's rough, man. Anybody who's in that business, man, God bless you, man. You got to have a lot of time, and your schedule's going to be thrown upside down. But it looks like it might be. It looks like it's going to be a really fun movie. I met some nice people, some really good stuff. So I think who was the guy that directed Dean? I'm blanking on his last name, but I think he wrote a bunch of episodes for The Godfather of Harlem. So shout out to him. He was a super nice guy. They were always so nice and, accommodating to my lack of talent. So I love it. They're very nice people.
Anyone who has worked in movies or done commercial shoots or modeling shoots, oftentimes you're getting paid to wait and aren't actually working, but
still
sometimes
horrible.
It's harder to wait than actually work. Like I just said to Chael and Dominic Cruz, like people give me a lot of credit when after broadcasting for 8 hours, I then go up and
crazy
post show, right? But thank you. But it's actually harder, and Kenny can speak to this, to sit up on that fucking set waiting all night for an opportunity to talk, right? It's the most exhausting thing in the world to sit up there for 6 hours, not say a word, and then the lights come on after the pay-per-view and you got to fucking be full of energy. That's hard too.
I agree with you 100%. But also I want to shout out TJ Sansone. He was the producer he's always got my back in a lot of stuff. So really nice guy. Wish everybody the best. But you're right, though. That sitting and waiting and then having to do something is really rough, man. You got to be able to turn it on and off like a light switch, and it's definitely not easy. And you got all the wrong food surrounding you, and you know what I mean. Like you could be doing good, and then after an hour of holding out, you say, maybe I'll have that Snickers bar. I gotta get something. It's I don't know. Well, it's a wacky bit, but that's enough of that. Nobody wants to hear about that.
Eat a bunch of candy bars, Doritos, and burritos, and then hop on camera to shoot a movie.
And then jump in an Uber at 5:30 in the morning and throw up in the back of it. Yeah, that's good.
So Leon Edwards did say to UFC PR after the fight, last night I spoke to my mom and she said, remember where you came from, remember the journey you took to get here, and don't throw it away because of words. And a lot of us felt like he was going to be able to check the emotion, and man, did he. I mean,
beautiful
he
job.
it all away in a beautiful way. Unless you guys have anything else on those two, I would like to get to some other UFC 296 pay-per-view highlights. Josh fucking Emmett. So
holy shit.
He is ubiquitously regarded as the biggest power threat in this featherweight division, Kenny. He had a brutal 2023, right? He lost to Yair Rodriguez. Then he was bludgeoned by Ilia Topuria. Hugely critical fight for Josh Emmett. He was to face the otherworldly striker Giga Chikadze. Instead, it's Bryce Mitchell on short notice. And I was talking to our friend Big Ron last night, Kenny, and, this was not an equilibrium type knockout where the head goes sideways. This was straight on blunt force trauma.
No question about it, man. This was the brain getting overwhelmed with a serious amount of energy. And Josh Emmett is one of those guys who's always been all class. He's a guy that doesn't need to trash talk. He does it with his fists, man. Always has. One of the most dangerous punchers that I've ever seen compete. That was the big thing for me heading into that fight. Can Bryce put him on his back and avoid that big power? And we got our answer. It was a beautiful exchange. This is Josh Emmett at his best. This is what he waits for. He waits for these kind of exchanges where he'll dip down, he gets you up a little bit too tall, and for Bryce Mitchell, who likes to hold his chin up a little too high, it was a recipe for disaster, and that fist just crashed into the jaw of Bryce Mitchell. And, we've seen some crazy knockouts. That one was legitimately scary to the point where And even to today, I hope Bryce Mitchell is going to be the same Bryce Mitchell that he was before that punch, because it was devastating. When you see someone who is seizing like that, when you see someone, after a period of time get up and they still can't find their legs on the floor, that's a concern. I mean, that's about as dangerous of a shot as you could land. And Emmett just has that power for days, man. What a performance. And again, to climb back, like you said, from those 2 losses, man, not everybody can do that. Not everybody is the same after taking a beating like that once, twice. And for him to come back and look like that is a testament to who Josh Emmett is as a human being.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, let's not forget, he's not a kid anymore. So
Right.
to be able to do that at that age, after, like you said, a horrible couple of fights before that's the impressive part to me, man. But before we even just hope Bryce Mitchell's all right. Very nice guy. You could even, first of all, I've never even seen a knockout that big. We've seen him, Kenny, where the guy's still on his back and he's doing his leg work and he's like,
Right.
He's like a bug, just moving. And this was violent, man. This was shaking, like you said, almost seizing up. So I don't really think I've ever seen that. I've seen the legs twitch, but his head was going. He could have choked on his tongue.
And at 145 pounds, this kid has that kind of power at that
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just very, very rare to see that.
Yeah. Perfect recipe. A guy a little taller, chin up in the air, against a guy who ducks down, who's got a very powerful overhand right. Was a recipe for disaster. But, again, what Josh Emmett did was absolutely phenomenal. Here's a guy that he's got a great mindset, this kid, man, because he went in there not letting anything bother him. He looked like the Josh Emmett of old against a tough kid, man. It wasn't like they threw him somebody who was ranked number 20. This kid's in the top 5.
Yeah.
Fought a lot of great people. Big statement for Emmett. Really big statement for Emmett.
And if you're Bryce Mitchell, and he's one of my favorites, and his former cameraman, Kid Ron Cannon, now one of our UFC embedded producers, is a longtime listener and supporter of the Anik and Florian podcast. I really feel badly for Bryce, but
yeah,
I feel like Kenny and Ray, this was a wayward career decision, right? I understand he closed like a minus 238 betting favorite, right? But completely throws away the Dan Ige win, and at least right now in the immediate future, throws away his featherweight contention. I understand that as a farmer, he's always in shape and working construction, but not doing formal training, accepting an elite former world title challenger like this. I just thought that it was a recipe for disaster, right? Some people are showing me Josh Emmett was like plus 430 by knockout, right? Which seemed to be like the way he was going to.
That's the only way he was going to win that fight. Yeah.
And when you talk about, I hope Bryce Mitchell's okay. I've had 3 concussions in my life, and I can speak to one of them where it sort of feels like your brain like hits the side of your skull, and then the room goes to the other side, and then it kind of comes back and centers. Like Bryce's brain probably hit the back of his head and then came forward. Like, dude, fucking convulsing and seizing.
Yeah.
I know he's young. He hasn't absorbed a lot of concussive damage, but it stands to reason, and I'm not trying to sound sensational here, that Bryce Mitchell's never the same.
Right. Well, we saw that. I mean, again, look at Tony after the Chandler fight. The Gaethje fighter. I'm sure we'll get to Tony later, but yeah, it was concerning, man. It was concerning, and these are the risks you take as a fighter. It's easy to forget that you walk into a certain fight, you may not be the same after, but that is a legitimate concern when you're facing the most dangerous fighters in the world. I mean, these are legit concerns.
Yeah, you know what the other problem was too? You could see his brain. He wanted to act like he was okay, like, damn, I'll get him, whatever he would. But then when he went to take his, man, that brain was still 10 minutes after was not attached to his body. You could see his legs shaking, you know what I mean? But, oof, man, I'd get him with a good, make sure he's okay, give him the proper rest.
Yes.
I think he's in the proper, like he looks like he's, Bryce is wacky, man. That's why those decisions are made. Like sometimes that wackiness comes with a price too. And I think that's what you saw, is that he wanted to jump in there. That's who he is. But was it an educated decision? I think there could have been better decisions than that. I agree with you, John, on that too, but I just again, I hope he's all right, and hats off to Emmett for a fascinating knockout. One that's going to last a long time.
Ray, in less than 30 seconds, because I want to move on. If you were Bryce Mitchell's coach, I know you are not a doctor like Gus Florian, for example, but how long before Bryce Mitchell is actually allowed to get into that regular work cycle in the gym? It's one thing to come watch practice, but what are you suggesting as a coach to Bryce Mitchell after one of the more devastating knockouts we've seen?
Well, first thing is I would call Augustine Florian and ask his advice. That's number one. And then I'd make my decision. That he's not seeing anything for 4 months minimum.
See?
4 or 5. You got to give the guy a real break. I don't even care. Honestly, I wouldn't even care what anybody says. He's got to, I'd say he's taken all 4 or 5 months minimum, because that goes quick, man. Yep. You get those concussions. They don't even want you. They don't want you thinking. They don't want you doing a math problem. You know what I mean? If you were a young kid, they don't even want you doing your math in school. You got to give that brain a break. I think there's enough good people around that could probably help him, even with supplementing and just making sure he's okay. But I would get with some good people, but I wouldn't do anything. Yeah, for a while. You got to err on the side of caution at this point. You can't do it. He's a young kid. Yep. He's got his whole life ahead of him. I wouldn't fuck around with that.
All right, one fight we have yet to touch on pay-per-view: Paddy Pimblett over Tony Ferguson by unanimous decision, 30-27 times 3. Kenny, I'd like to start with you on this one. We were at that invite-only penthouse on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
Thursday night, we were watching the press conference back, and you and my twin brother were just in stitches with Paddy Pimblett when he calls you a fucking nit.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, I love hearing Paddy on a microphone, Kenny, and I thought he handled this challenge well, all things considered, but it is an alarming sign, right, that he gassed himself out to such an extent. And I like that Paddy is a man of veracity and always shares with everyone the truth, but not a great visual that he really needed to survive and advance, as opposed to, really putting it on Tony late.
Just sausage. Yeah. That was fun, man. That was a lot of fun. I can hear someone from Liverpool talk all day. Listen, I think that I thought Tony did a much better job than we've seen him in the last few fights. Not great. Not saying Tony's back. He's totally different, anything like that. But I thought he had a much better performance than we've seen him in the past. So I think part of that is due to Tony stepping it up a little bit. But also, I think that this is one of those fights that you get a good gauge on in regards to Paddy and, trying to figure out, is he a guy that is hyped up? Is he a guy that is elite? Is he a guy with just a lot of potential at this stage of the game? I think he's a guy with potential at this stage of the game. I wouldn't venture and say that he is elite. I think if he was elite, at the very least, you go out there and you finish someone like Tony Ferguson. No disrespect. I just think that Tony has kind of become this gauge in that division that if you can get by him and look good doing so, you're on to bigger and better things. And this was not necessarily a step back for Paddy, but it's a little bit concerning that he struggled as much as he did against someone like Tony. Now, Tony is extremely experienced and all that, but certainly not in his prime. And I think a lot of people expected to see a much better Paddy out there than what we saw on Saturday night.
You fucking nit, yeah?
Yeah, nit.
I think guy brings me back to 1965. I'm sitting in my grandmother's house watching those 4 lads from Liverpool do their thing on Ed Sullivan. I swear to God, I mean, it is funny. I don't really know if I even understand what he's saying, but I did get the fucking nit thing and the sausage. He's funny, but it's funny. A lot of guys at the gym Sunday, they thought the same thing you said. They thought Tony looked better. It's a slippery slope with him, but they thought he looked good. They thought he looked like he was kind of back, but I say it's who he had in front of him is part of the reason. I mean, you gave a guy that Pimlett's not in the top 15, is he?
No,
right. So you gave the guy, I guess, what people would think is a layup, believe it or not, for where Tony Ferguson was in his career against, where Patty is. So I think, I think he looked good because Patty, he's just not that good. You know what I mean? Like he's definitely got balls, but he definitely blew his load in the first round. I think they could have stopped that fight based on all the previous fights that Tony's been in. So yeah, maybe Coggins got his conditioning up so he could get his ass beat for another 10 minutes. I don't think that's helping anything, man. I really don't. The guy still, when he's getting hit, the basics just aren't there. He's not covering. He's not moving. You don't see. He's just flailing. Yeah, he's flailing. His legs are definitely not what they was. So, I mean, that's the only thing. Like, the rah-rah speeches at that point, and I'm obviously big on them, and that's what you have to do. You got to know you got a guy that's handicapped in there. It's just the way it is. And I feel big because he did look better. But was he better, or did he look better because the guy in front of him had his chin up higher than he had his chin up? And some of those exchanges those exchanges on the feet, Kenny, were rough to watch. Ground wise, Pimblett looks good, man. He looks good. Yeah. He's squared away. You know what I mean? So that's where his strength is. But it looks like he's getting a little better, and that was a big fight probably mentally for him because Ferguson has a name. But at the end of the day, when you analyze it, what do you have, 6 losses in a row?
Yeah. It's the craziest Wikipedia page in UFC history.
I just hope he doesn't match
7 red ones.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he doesn't want to match his win streak with a loss streak. That would be horrible to see because Tony Ferguson was a complete animal at one point. But, I guess you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. That's not our job, really. That's really the athletic commission at this point. They're there to protect everybody. But, it's just not looking good. You know what I mean? So what do you do with him? Who do you give him the next fight?
Well, I am not in the business of retiring fighters. Go ahead, Kenny.
I was just going to say, I know Dana said that he would like to see Tony retire at the press conference or something like that. So, yeah.
So we'll see, right? But he hasn't focused on MMA fundamentals seemingly forever, right? I mean, Chael Sonnen got some time with Tony Ferguson's father, and Tony's dad acknowledged that there's really no head coach here, and that's problematic.
Oh, man. Oh, that's... Yeah,
so, but for Paddy Pimblett, real quickly, right? I am not sitting here suggesting that he is elite, nor am I suggesting he's ready for top 20 competition. But the notion that there aren't beatable guys in the top 15, like I'm not going to name any names right now, but I think there are a couple guys that he, with his athleticism and his grappling, can be better than. He also is a pretty good striker, even though we haven't necessarily seen him realize a lot of success on the feet. I would also point out KenFlo, and perhaps I sound like an apologist, but had 2 very invasive ankle surgeries. He had been off for a year and did not manage his cardio system very well in this fight. I'm not going to sit here and suggest that I think Paddy Pimblett can become a champion. In this division, frankly, it's going to be very hard for him to ever reach the top 10. But he's 28 years old. He could have come to the UFC at 21 or 23. He bided his time. He is building himself the right way. Got the 2nd degree on his BJJ black belt over the last few weeks. Like, kid works hard, man. And physically, he's in a completely different place than he was a year ago. So I think the jury's still out.
Physically, he looked great. And I think a lot of that is true, John. I would also argue that there's probably guys in the top 50 in that division that could also beat him. In my
good point, Kenny. Good point.
But I think the good thing though is that this isn't a guy who has hit his limit. There's so much more he can do with his striking and with his overall MMA game to be better. So I think that's one of those cases for me. If I saw him, I'd go, listen, man. Let's not do any jiu-jitsu for like 4 months. We're going to focus on keeping that chin down, being defensively responsible, working on your striking, going in there against good boxers, watching videotape, making sure we're not making some of these mistakes. Because if you do want to be elite, right, if you do want to make the most amount of money, you're going to have to break into that top 10, top 5 situation because marketing-wise, the UFC loves him. People love seeing him fight. So if he wants to take that next level, I saw improvements with his wrestling. I know he's been working with Justin Flores, who I saw at the MMA Awards, by the way, did a great job. So this is a kid with a lot of potential, John. So I'd like to see him work on his striking moving forward, and then we could be having a completely different conversation on Paddy.
Yeah, I agree with. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me just say I agree with Kenny on the definitely on the striking thing. I don't want to take anything away from Pimblett. He did what he had to do. yeah, he gassed out, but his first round, they really could have stopped that fight, I believe. But not that it was would a good stoppage, bad stoppage, but I don't blame him for thinking they could have stopped the fight. I don't want to take anything away from him because he's definitely a ballsy kid. He wants to fight. I think right now he's making his awkwardness work for him, but I would like to see him tighten up a lot of stuff. But I think he creates that chaos on his feet, and he's not gun shy. It's not that. So he's got the balls. So somebody could really grab him and really tighten him up. I think he'd be a problem because I do believe he's got the mindset. I think he loves being in there. And that's a big thing, man. So there's a lot to work with there, but we'll see how the future plays out.
I ran into your student, Nazim Sadikoff, at the MMA Awards,
Ooh.
and I think that's probably a good name, right? A guy who's probably number 30 in the world right now, Nas maybe around 30, who might even be favored to beat Paddy Pimblett. So just backing up KenFlo's point there, that while I do see two names in the top 15 that I think Paddy Pimblett matches up very well against, there are guys in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that would match up well with Paddy and could be favored to beat him. So we'll see where Paddy Pimblett goes from here. But just such a good kid, man. Like, I love my time around Paddy Pimblett, and he's a huge asset, I think, potentially for the promotion moving forward. All right, Ray, before we let you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, you could see, like, when Tony walked out of the octagon abruptly after he didn't want to stand there, and I guess somebody sent him back in. Hope that was Coggins doing the right thing. But you could see he was upset. Like, he's a good kid. You could see that he's a nice kid. Sometimes the accents and everything throw you off, right? You don't get a good feel for the guy. Like, when we're talking, we understand each other. So I do think he's a good kid, and we'll see what happens in the future.
All right, Ray, before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on the fight of the night at bantamweight. Irene Aldana and Kadolhoza turning not just the fight of the night, but one of the best back and forth fights of the year. A lot of damage sustained on both sides. At the end of the day, punches to the face are going to win more than leg kicks are, but I felt like Hoza was game as hell and very close to getting the biggest win of her career. KenFlo, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that fight was just ridiculous. And it was so cool because it started off, kind of crazy, and it just crescendoed at the right time and got crazier and crazier. The toughness that both ladies displayed, the adjustments that both ladies displayed out there was awesome. And, I've been one of those guys that, for better or worse, women's MMA hasn't always, attracted me to watch the fights. But women's MMA at its best, when you get fighters at the highest level that bring it, it's as good as any fight out there, and that was proof of that. Just tremendous heart, determination, and skill by both ladies out there. That was maybe my favorite fight of the night, guys. I mean,
without a doubt,
unbelievable.
Without a doubt. I mean, just to be able to go through that pain like nothing's happened, that's what you want from a fighter. You bust it up, and they're acting like it's the first round. And they both look like, monsters by the end of the fight. Like, this was crazy. There's definitely not a loser in that fight by no means. I mean, I would have just for the sake of sportsmanship called it a fucking draw. You know what I mean? But that fight could have went either way. I agree with you, John. Those leg kicks. But she was able to block the pain out there. Not pleasant, man. What she was able to do, Aldana, again, coming off a crappy performance against Pena, she regrouped too. That's what the theme of the night is. People that, they needed big wins. They needed to show who they are, and they did. Emmett did it. She did it. And she did it with some resistance, man. Emmett didn't get the resistance that girl got. That was a crazy fight, man. But I'm with you, Kenny. That was to me I like that fight better than any fight.
Yeah, I kept thinking about, imagine the poor bastard that ever decided to put their hands on either of those two ladies, like a normal dude who thinks he can do something. Like, she would kill them. I mean, she would absolutely destroy that. Like, those ladies are just some of the craziest warriors that I've seen. I mean, that was an absolute classic, dude. What a fight.
If I have to hear our producer Cody Merrow talk about his ability to beat any of these women in an MMA setting, he might actually get fired. They would destroy you. Okay, they would fucking destroy you. So I just have to say, though, Irene Aldana's ability to not give in to that leg with anything resembling a limp, I think really helped her win that fight. And Francisco Grasso, to me, with respect to Pahumpa, I'm not trying to steal the thunder of our award show coming up on January 1st, but like Francisco Grasso is my coach of the year, man. Like this guy's ability to turn these, developing average fighters into world-class mixed martial artists. Just a lot of respect for both of these two women. And Ray, I will say this was the night upon which I decided that my daughters will not be allowed to be mixed martial artists.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point, John. You look at that and you go, holy crap. I mean, you see that picture in the hospital with those two? I mean,
oh, man.
I hope everybody's okay with that too. But man, what a fight that was. What a freaking fight. Holy
So
crow.
We're at the Penthouse this week, and I hear these guys start to talk about like the fact that you're not supposed to necessarily ice your injuries anymore. So Kenny, I don't know if you can expand upon this. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We could talk about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin too if you want. But like I see Cody Garbrandt icing his leg, and I'm thinking like they should put a big fucking ice pack on Cadolhosa's face. But what were you talking about that ice isn't necessarily the game changer that we've been led to believe for the last quarter century?
Right. Yeah. So they're talking about like with things that happen with, let's say like your ankle, you hurt your ankle, you twist your ankle. Like, there was this, idea that if you ice it right away, you can reduce the swelling and all this stuff. And what they're saying now is that they're doing this big change and shift from icing it immediately to instead actually mobilizing that joint, to actually moving around the ankle, actually walking on it. So instead of staying off, it's like, don't do anything. You got to ice it and all this stuff. The medical community in general is kind of moving away from that model of not doing anything and resting to actually doing stuff. I don't think that's a great thing if you're getting hit in the head to go, just get hit in the head again. I don't think we want to do that. But with like things like a sprained ankle or maybe a bruised leg from kicking is actually, you want to actually move it around. You want to get that blood actually flowing in and out of there. So icing isn't always the best approach, which is interesting. Even with like things like heart surgeries now, they're getting people up on their feet that day after the surgery to walk around. Whereas, even as soon as just several years ago, they would always say, okay, now just lay in bed, don't do anything. They're kind of moving away from that approach, which is pretty interesting. But man, that leg of Aldana, she's got to be still feeling that today. That was unreal. And the toughness, like if there was one point where you're like, I don't know if she's going to get out of this round. And she just got stronger and stronger. She was like the Incredible Hulk. She got stronger with every kick. It was crazy.
Yeah, let me shout out my man, Mike Stella. He's an athletic trainer who works on me. Super nice guy, super intelligent. He's got a program called The End of the Ice Age. And he's a firm believer in exactly what you just said. And I don't want to paraphrase him because I'm an idiot, but he kind of even told me the guy that came up, the doctor or whoever came up with the 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off, that like a couple of years later, he said, no, it was wrong. There was no, context to that, right? So, yeah, you got to move. But I could tell you what, even with my hip surgery, they won't let me out of the hospital until I could walk up the stairs. That's 2 hours after the surgery. Wow. Now, was ice a big part of that? I mean, when I got home, they had me icing 20 minutes on because the trauma to the leg, but they're also having you move, right? So what is it? I mean, like I read years ago, it wasn't even the ice that was doing it, was the compression of the ice on the thing, so it's crazy. But anybody interested, get that End of the Ice Age program.
Ray, they had you move around right after the surgery like that?
I had to go up now, and I'm going to say 2 hours after the surgery, I had to go upstairs to be able to leave the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they want you moving. And that's been, listen, even whenever you're hurt, it's always better to move. You sitting on the couch or laying down it's just not good, right?
Right.
It's just not good for you. So I think it all goes hand in hand, but very interesting point though with that. But with that being said,
looked like Ray just froze there for a minute. I don't hear him.
I froze for a split second.
There you are.
You're
back
now?
You're back.
Yeah. Listen, before we go, I don't know if you're going to forget, but John, first I want to say, the Chris Weidman comeback documentary I thought was phenomenal. I'm glad you had a big part in that, dude. Just speak so beautifully, and you got a great command of the English language. I mean, can you give me speaking lessons? That's all I'm asking, because I thought you came across unbelievable on that thing.
Well, thank you. I didn't know if I would end up on the cutting room floor. That was absolutely the way I was going to close our interview. The E60
you were
special,
okay.
Chris Weidman, The Return. It is available now on ESPN Plus. It did air on ESPN already. But yeah, I mean, what was so interesting for me going back through that exercise, Kenny, when I found out that E60 wanted to talk to me, I had to go back and watch Chris Weidman break his leg. And when I called it, I don't know if they put this in the piece, I was so shook. Obviously, my relationship with Chris and Ray and any athlete really doing that. But obviously, this is an athlete that I'm particularly close to. I called out the wrong leg, that he had broken his left leg instead of his right when I was doing the play-by-play, because I was so fucking shook.
Oh no, I still couldn't watch it last night.
Yeah, I can't.
It's horrendous. But I tell you, the old footage, how young he was when I first met him. I mean, look,
it's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look, he sent me a text last night, and he said, "Look, I might have a drink in me, so I might erase this. So just so you know." But it was a very nice text. But I said, "Man, I will always cherish those times when he first walked into the gym, and you lose sight of so many things over time. Like how young he looked was unbelievable to me. Like man, time's flying, man. I'd like to slow it down a little bit, but it brought back some really good memories.
Yeah.
It was a great period of time for the gym, for everybody involved. This has been a crazy, crazy run for everybody, but God bless him, man. He did get back in there. It's not an easy thing. And even he said, he wanted to throw the kick, but he couldn't, so we know he's human, at least. That was a good sign.
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to think he wasn't human. But, crazy. Great job, ESPN. Great job. I think Frank Saraceno, I think he was producing. Obviously, Stefania Bell. We love her. Great interviewer. Came across great on the camera. Everybody was just they did a beautiful job with that. And I was glad I could be a part of it. And I'm glad I joined him on that journey, man, because he had some rise. And you go back to those Ring of Combat fights, even takes me back. It was so exciting. Sometimes those little local shows are just more, they're just better for some reason because of the tightness of the crowd, and you got the whole neighborhood there. It's neighborhood against neighborhood. Some of that stuff is priceless. Yeah.
Well, and as gracefully as you have aged, Raymond, do you know who else looked pretty young in that footage? You.
Yeah, that's because I was young. That's what
you look like a baby. All right, if you want more from Ray Longo, he's on Twitter, pretty active on that, x.com at Ray Longo MMA. His Instagram got hacked, Zuckerberg, but he's at Ray Longo MMA 9358 if you want him there. Hey, thanks for the extended time here, my man. I'm actually here in Vegas still, but we missed you this week. Yeah, we're off next week for Christmas. And then we have our award show on Monday, January 1st, and we would like you to be a part of that entire episode. So
I would love it. It's my honor. I want you guys to have a great holiday. I consider you guys family, John, and that's why the Colby thing ain't. I want you to let it go. I'm not letting.
I've let it go. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
and we consider you family as well. We absolutely love you. We appreciate everything that you have done for this program. And if you do want to support Ray Longo Minute merchandise, all available at jonanik.com. We missed you out here, buddy, but hope to see you soon. Have a great holiday, and I guess we'll talk to you in 2024.
Man. Listen. Can we fix our awards like this stupid Fighters Only fix their awards? Can we fix them?
Well, ours is a meritocracy. So
I say next week we all go home with our awards we should have gotten last week. How's that?
Yeah.
Gym of the year. How about we go by square footage? How many people have...
Hey, Cody, maybe...
No, wait, hold on a second. Hold on. Hats off to Lambert and everybody. I fuck around with this shit. Is meant to be fun, but hats off to Lambert, Palumpa, everybody, Bamman, whoever, won the categories. And it was fun. I enjoyed watching the show, so it was awesome.
Well, if you're really interested, maybe Cody can connect with you off the air, and you can actually give award winners for all 10 of our awards, just like Kenny and I do. We'd love to have you be a part of that.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, great.
Let's do it.
All right, we will talk to you on Monday, January 1st. We'll need a couple hours of your time. That will be our award show. And I can tell you this. You're not my coach of the year, but KenFlo gave you the award. So
there you go. Because
No, it actually
Very
might be me. One of us probably going to give you the hardware. Get the fuck out of here.
See you, Ray.
My man, take it easy, guys.
Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik Florian podcast. So in 1982, I had a spiral fracture of my femur. My twin brother and I were moving a TV away from the wall in our home in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and might have been Natick at the time. Fucking Natick. Actually, we might have been in fucking Billerica. Wait, were we in fucking Danvers? No, we were in Wellesley. And we were moving a TV away from the wall that was on a stand, and I kind of tripped and fell. Jake kept pushing. The TV slides off the stand, spiral fractured my femur instantly. I went into shock, right? But just piggybacking upon the point you made earlier, our former UFC producer, Mike Ricci, when his son George broke his leg at 8 or 9 years of age in 2021, they had him walking on it the next day. I was in traction for 8 weeks with a pin through my knee, shitting in a bedpan, not doing anything. So the medical game has changed significantly in 40 years, and it sort of backs up the point you were making earlier. All right, congratulations to all the other big winners. Cody Garbrandt back in a big way. Alonzo Menafield, nice to see his power rule the scorecards there against Dustin Jacoby. Congrats to all of those of you that cashed on Menafield plus 200 or better. Ariane Lipski. I feel so good for this fighter, right? You could just tell the focus in her eyes all week was undeniable. Springs the upset against Casey O'Neill, gets a $50,000 bonus for the armbar. I just want to get this out there because when I went and spent extended time with Amanda Nunes at the Lioness Studio before she fought Irene Aldana this summer, Ariane Lipski was just working, man. She was the only one in that Lioness Studio. She was working the whole time we were talking. She was Amanda's primary sparring partner, and you know, she came to the UFC with expectation, and I just feel really good for her at this stage of her career to have won 3 fights in a row and to get a bonus. Like, it's just really, it's really cool for her. Congratulations to Tagir Ulanbekov. He submits Cody Durden, Andre Feely with a big win over Lucas Almeida, and Shamil Gazib getting a bonus for his TKO of Martin Budai. All right, we are off on Christmas Day. We are back with you on Monday, January 1st. That'll be the first of 2 parts to our award show that comes your way there. If there is any nominee that you want to throw out there at Anik Florian Pod, we will go over all of the categories come the 1st of January. But anyone who you think we might leave out or could end up on the cutting room floor, all we ask at Kenny Florian, at Anik Florian Pod, at Cody_Mero, at John_Anik. Let us know because we don't want to shortchange any individual. One thing that will be different about our award show this year, we're each picking 2 knockouts of the year because we came up with 27 knockouts that could have gotten the hardware. So that's the only difference. We'll each hand out 11 awards. Longo will probably hand out 10. And just wanted to thank our entire listenership and viewership, Kenny, as I know you do on the way out. We have felt so much love and support from all of you people, whether it's supporting our merchandise initiatives at jonanik.com or alerting your friends to this show or wondering why we don't have more views because you think it's the best MMA podcast in the world. We appreciate the fuck out of every last one of you and just wanted to say that. Also want to thank Brian Petrie, Ray Longo, Cody Mero, Jason Anik, everybody that has helped build this thing. Amanda Anik building out the website as well. Thank you all. KenFlo, what do you got planned for Christmas? You got real tree, fake tree? What do you got?
We got a real tree, man. My wife is a big real tree girl. So we got that in already all set up. The house is all Christmased out. It's just going to be us and the kids. So I'm excited, man. It's all about the kids. They love it. They've been excited every single day. We've been doing Elf on the Shelf, and
nice.
They're excited about that. So, yeah, man, should be fun.
So I think I have about as much Christmas spirit as any Jewish man. I know Big Ron likes to suggest that, like, I'm kind of a fake Jew, but I was bar mitzvahed, so. But I have a lot of Christmas spirit. I didn't grow up with a Christmas tree, so it was very exciting upon getting married to have a Christmas tree all the time. We've had a real tree every year until this one. And we have the fake tree, and I don't know how I feel about it because it doesn't smell like anything. I guess the caveat is that it won't die on December 17th.
Hey, and you don't get all that damn whatever the stuff that trickles off all over the rug and all over the floor. Right. So yeah, the needles. There you go.
Right.
Thank you, Cody.
Right. My dog eating all the needles. All right, we got to get out of here. Thank you to Ray Longo, our executive producer, Cody Mero, and thanks to every last one of you. Check out the website, jonanik.com. Holiday sales going on right up to Christmas. Also, KenFlo, are you still on Cameo or no?
I am on Cameo, actually.
So we don't promote our Cameo pages, right? And there are reasons why we don't do that. But I just wanted to say, if you are looking for a last-minute holiday gift, we will provide videos for you on Cameo. We are both active on that app. And I've had a lot of great connections with fans over the years. So if you are looking for a last-minute gift, we would be happy to provide that for you. With that, for KenFlo, I'm Jon Anik. Thank you all for watching, for listening. Tell your friends, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. We will see you in 2024. Until then, yo fucking later.
Are you sure we're not in the Boston Garden?
Hey, atlas! From about 11 DC!
Cornbread.
Cornbread!
Oh, he's cornbread.
Cornbread!
Like the mix in a bowl, like the yeast in a roll. He's alive, he ain't dead. He's a soul to the bread. He's cornbread.
Cornbread!
Oh, he's cornbread.
Cornbread!
Life is so precious, do the best that you can. Keep your hands on the bar, hit the open man. He's cornbread.
Cornbread!
Oh, he's cornbread.